Greetings! In today's video, I'll be taking a look at MaimeriBlu's range of professional paints through their set of 12 half pans. I was attracted to this set because it was the most affordable of all their sets, featuring their nice, unique tin. You'll see what I mean in a moment. I received the paints in a very unassuming package, basically just shrink wrap over a cardboard sleeve that houses the metal tin. The tin has a very unique finish, kind of a frosty silver. The model of the tin itself is not new, but this finish is not something I had seen before. This is the heavyweight model of enamel tins, not the usual model like the one Schminke offers often. The tin opens up and the cover can be used to mix 3 relatively large puddles of paint. There is another panel for mixing that you can unfold. It is completely flat and open in the corners, so I definitely wouldn't recommend mixing anything too large in there, or it might run out by the corners. This panel also lays at an angle, which doesn't help. The set doesn't come with a pre-printed chart to fill, but it has this piece of Canson heritage paper to swatch out the paints. I took a moment to clean up the box with a wet paper towel, as the set had tiny flakes of enamel everywhere. They don't seem to come from the tin itself, as all the enamel in it was fine. The main compartment of the set has sections for 12 half pans. They are held in place with metal wedges. There's a large area in the middle and a small compartment on one side. Taking a look at the pans themselves, they follow the common model of having a paper sleeve wrapper over a metal and paper wrapper. The paper sleeve has all the paint info on it: pigment composition, name, transparency, and light fastness. MaimeriBlu uses white plastic pans with the brand name at the bottom. The pans have color number and name printed on them. This pan, the ivory black, was very weird. The paint was very soft and it was impossible to remove the paper without making a mess. I put it in the freezer for a few minutes, but it was the first time I ran into this kind of issue with an ivory black paint. I unwrapped all the other pans and they were less soft, but they all had the paper stick to the top of the pan. That's not hard to remove later on, but it's a bit unimpressive from a professional company. Especially when you have Holbein there with their super elaborate and efficient wrapper. I bought an extra pan, the sepia, because I heard good things about that color. I also have an older model MaimeriBlu pan that I bought a few years ago. I'll try to see if I can sort out these 14 pans in the tin that came with the set. After unwrapping all the pans, I felt like they were the smaller model of pans. I compared them with a Winsor & Newton pan and a Van Gogh pan. Both of those I know as being smaller than a generic or a Schminke pan. The MaimeriBlu pan is about the same size as the Winsor & Newton pan, but it has these notches on the short sides. The Van Gogh pan has thicker walls and an indent on the small sides, but it's also very near in size to the MaimeriBlu pan. In light of all this, I had this suspicion that the pans would not be large enough to sit well in the tin. I filled up one side, inserted the wedge, and... Yep, everything fell out of the tin, even the wedge. I put in my older pan, which is a bit larger, more in line with the size of generic pans, and that one held in fine. At that moment, I was a bit out of ideas, but I later realized there's a possible way to fix this. One can gently squeeze the large borders of the pan areas, making the space for the pans just a bit narrower. That way, the wedge stays in place and can prevent the small pans from falling out. They still move around a lot though. That's something that really annoys me. I would have to add magnets, blue tack, or some sort of adhesive to truly hold the pans in place. I hate when they have wiggle room. It's also worth mentioning that the older, bigger pan still fits in the tin with the small adjustments. It even fits better than before in the sense that with the wedge, the pan stays in place, it doesn't wiggle around. Like I mentioned earlier, all my new pans ended up with some paper over them. Here's a shot that shows how much was left on the pans. Some fared better than others. I decided to use another box for the paints. I'm just not sure enough about how I want to use the nice enamel tin, and I really like this Kuretake box. I just removed the tray with the paints that came in the set and used double-sided tape to stick the MaimeriBlu pans in. Next thing to do was to remove the paper attached to the paints. I just wet the top with a brush, waited for the paint to soften, and removed the paper with a toothpick. And finally, when that was done, I started painting the swatches. As if the sticky black paint and the pan versus tin size ratio wasn't weird enough, check out the colors I got in this set. It included Pyrrole Orange, Permanent Yellow Orange, Golden Ochre, Permanent Madder Deep, Pyrrole Red, Patchouli Earth, Green Earth, Cobalt Green Light, Cobalt Blue Light, Verzino Violet, Burnt Umber, and Ivory Black. I added Sepia and Garnet Lake. To get back to the set colors though, I was a bit surprised by that color selection. I went back to Jackson's listing for those paints and they list the set colors as Cadmium Orange, Cadmium Yellow Deep, Golden Ochre, Raw Sienna, Cadmium Red Light, Burnt Sienna, Green Earth, Cobalt Green Light, Cobalt Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Raw Umber, and Ivory Black. That means that 8 colors from my set are different from the listed ones. However, the images from the Jackson's listing have the same color selection as the set I received. Then, out of curiosity, I checked on MaimeriBlu's website and they have this product listed there too, but it has the colors from the listing. It's all pretty confusing. It's still a very unique color selection, featuring no yellow, a traditionally weak green earth, a magenta, a blue, a green, a brown, and a black. Oh, and 6 red or orange colors. I feel a challenge coming up with the demo painting. To give me a chance, I tried to draw something that would let me use this palette the best I could. The paints worked well. I expected a bigger pigment load from some of them, like the cobalt blue and the cobalt green. Others were quite vibrant, like the Purell red. The cobalt blue works a lot like ultramarine, and I was able to mix a gray using the blue and the burnt umber. The rest of the colors I used pretty much straight from the pan, as they are already somewhat far from primary colors. If you want to see some high-resolution scans of the swatches, make sure to check out my Patreon page. I'll have the link in the description below. I always make available the scans of the swatches over there, and you can see the demo painting up close as well. Overall, I am not sure these paints are for me. I generally prefer more intense colors, because I know I can dilute them down to have something weaker. It's much harder to build intensity with weak colors. On its own as a set, I can't recommend it unless what you saw is exactly what you want. I love the tin, but it's a poor match for the pans. The color selection makes this set far from versatile, and it's also quite expensive, as is common with professional paint sets. What do you think? Like it? Hate it? Let me know in the comments below. Take care, bye bye.